Hi crew! Our learning objective for this video is I can add and subtract multi-digit decimals using an algorithm. So once again, we're going to talk about adding and subtracting multi-digit decimals. Multi-digit means it's going to have more than one digit in it. It's also going to contain a decimal. And we're going to do that using an algorithm. You may have heard this called stacking before. If you haven't already, go ahead and find the adding and subtracting decimals page in your note catcher. If you need to pause the video in order to do that right now, go for it. Otherwise, we're going to keep going. An important thing to do when you are adding and subtracting decimals is to remember to line the decimals when you add and subtract, so you are combining the same place values. You might also need to borrow when you subtract. When I do this, I like to think of the phrase, the dot, and give it all you've got. Kind of a fun little saying. Line up the dot and give it all you've got. So our first problem here asks us to find the sum of 12 and 85/100, 6 and 4/10. Now sum is the answer to an addition problem. So when you see that word sum, you need to add. We've been asked to rewrite the problem with the decimal points aligned. So let's start with 12 and 85/100. So 12 and 85/100. Notice I said and when I got to that decimal point. Let's talk a little bit about the place value here. The 1 is in the tens place. The 2 is in the ones place. The 8 is in the tenths place. Notice it has this TH on the end. And the 5 is in the hundredths. It's getting a little bit funky there, but that's the hundredths place. All right, we're going to add that to 6. The 6 is in the ones place. And what I like to do just to keep this nice and clean for when I add it is I'm going to put some zeros as placeholders just so I make sure to keep everything aligned when I add it. My last value is 4/10, so I'm going to put a 4 in the tenths place. I'm also going to put a 0 just as a placeholder in the hundredths place. And now I am ready to add. All right, let's start with the hundredths place. So I have 5 plus 0 plus 0, that's 5. Erase those little dots so we don't get confused with those later. All right, and in the tenths place, I have 8 plus 0 plus 4, that's 12. So I'm going to put the 2 down and carry the 1. Make sure to put my decimal point in there. In the ones place, I have 1 plus 2 is 3, plus 6 is 9, so I have a 9 in the ones place. No need to carry anything there. And then in the tens place, all I have is 1. So my value is 19 and 25/100. Now I'm going to go back and just make sure that that makes sense. So this 12 and 85/100, that's close to 13. 6 is close to 6. And 4/10 we could round up to 1. So 13 plus 6 is 19, plus 1 is 20. Our estimate is close to our final answer of 19 and 25/100. All right, let's move on to our next problem. Our next problem asks us to find the difference between 102 and 3/10 and 64. Now when we see difference, that's asking us to solve a subtraction problem. So we have 102 and 3/10, and from that we are going to subtract 64. Now just like our previous problem, I'm going to add in some placeholders here. just so that I can keep things nice and clean. So in the tenths place, I have 3 minus 0, which is 3. Put my decimal point in there. I lined up the dot and I gave it all I've got. Now, when I get to the ones place, I have 2 minus 4. Now, I can't take away 4 from 2. So I'm going to go over to the tens place. There's a 0 there, so that's not going to help us. So I'm going to go all the way over to the hundreds place. So I'm going to borrow from this 1 here. That gives us 0 hundredths, but it does give us 10 tenths, which is the same. Now we still need some help in that ones category. So we're going to cross this out. We're going to borrow 110 and turn that 2 into a 12. So 12 minus 4 is 8, and 9 minus 6 is 3. So there's our final answer there. 38 and 3 tenths. All right. Let's move down. We have another problem asking us to find the difference. If you would like to pause the video and try this yourself and then play it as I go through it, great. If you want to do it with me, that's awesome as well. So we're going to start by rewriting this problem. So we have 78 and 7 tenths, and we are going to subtract 16 and 94 hundredths. I'm going to put in my 0 as my placeholder. Looks like I'm going to need to do some borrowing here. So 0 minus 4, I can't do that, so I'm going to borrow this from here and turn this 7 into a 6. So then I have a 10. 10 minus 4 is 6. And in my tenths column, 6 minus 9, I can't do that, so I'm going to need to borrow again. So I have 16 minus 9, and that is 7. In my ones column, 7 minus 6 is 1. And in my tens column, 7 minus 1 is 6. So my final answer is 61 and 76 hundredths. Just looking at this problem again, remember difference is a subtract. For our next problem, we've been asked to find the sum of 78 and 9 tenths plus 16 and 94 hundredths. Remember that sum means that we have an addition problem. If you would like to pause the video and try this yourself and then check it with the video when you're finished, great. If not, let's keep moving. So we have 78 and 9 tenths plus 16 and 94 hundredths. I'm going to put in my 0 just as a placeholder in order to add these together. Now, a common mistake that you might see people make when they don't line up the dot is it would look something like this. So people would just line up their digits. But the problem with this is that you would be lining up different place values. So for example, you would have 8 ones that you would be adding together with 9 tenths, and that would give you the wrong answer. So let's subtract that so we don't get confused. All right, looking at our problem, in our tenths place, we have 0 plus 4 is 4. 9 plus 9 is 18, and let's carry our 1. Don't forget to put our decimal in there. In our ones place, we have 1 plus 8 is 9, plus 6 is 15, and carry our 1. And 1 plus 7 plus 1 is 9. So our final answer is 95 and 84 hundredths. Oops. 95 and 84 hundredths. All right, let's head to this last row here. All right, find the difference. Another subtraction problem for us here. So we have 121 minus 36 and 4 hundredths. Let's go ahead and put in our 0 placeholders here. All right. Looks like we're going to need to do some borrowing here. 0 minus 4, we can't do that. So let's see. Oh, we can't even borrow in the tenths place, so we're going to have to go all the way to the ones place. So we'll make it 0 ones, which would give us 10 tenths. But we need something in the hundredths place, so we'll cross that out and make it 9 tenths. And we have 10 hundredths. So 10 minus 4 is 6. 9 minus 0 is 9. Put our decimal point in there. Oh, we got to the ones place. Looks like we're going to need to do some more borrowing. So let's borrow from the tens place. So we borrowed 1 10, which is 10 ones. 10 minus 6 is 4. And in the tens place, we have 1 minus 3. Well, we can't do that. So let's borrow from the hundredths place. So 100 is 10 tenths. So 11 minus 3 is 8. So our final answer here is 84 and 96 hundredths. Okay, here's our last problem. This one's a little bit trickier. We need to evaluate, which means we're going to find the answer to 168 and 7 tenths minus 26 and 4 thousandths plus 12 and 32 hundredths. Now we're going to follow the order of operations, which means that we do addition and subtraction from left to right. So we're going to start with this subtraction problem right here. So we have 168 and 7 tenths minus 26 and 4 thousandths. Let's put in those 0 placeholders there. Oh, looks like we're going to need to do some more borrowing. All right, in the thousandths place, 0 minus 4, well, we can't do that, so we're going to have to do some borrowing. And it's not until this 7 that I see that I can borrow something. So we'll make this a 6, a 10, so it'll have to be a 9. Okay, there we go. That was a lot of borrowing. 10 minus 4 is 6. 9 minus 0 is 9. And 6 minus 0 is 6. All right, getting into the ones place, 8 minus 6 is 2. 6 minus 2 is 4. And 1 minus 0 is 1. So for our first step, we have 142 and 696 thousandths. Now we're going to add that 142 and 696 thousandths to 12 and 32 hundredths. Okay, just like I've done before, let's put in our placeholders. Here we go. All right, 6 plus 0 is 6. 9 plus 2 is 11. 1 plus 6 is 7. Plus 3 is 10, so there's our borrowing. Don't forget our decimal point there. 1 plus 2 is 3. Plus 2 more is 5. In our, where'd my 5 go? There it is. And 4 plus 1 is 5. And then 1 plus 0 is 1. So our final answer here is 155 and 16 thousandths. All right, just to review, our learning target was I can add and subtract multi-digit decimals using the algorithm.